What's up, Sassy Gamers? Welcome to another SASS Interviews. This is your host, Zycia here. I'm alongside Daydrinker ATL and also Phoenix Nova. Today with us in the studio, we have Joseph from Familiar Games. He's going to talk to us about a little bit of some games that he's been working on. So, hey, Joseph, welcome to the show. Thanks for having us.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Awesome. Well, hey, so we actually met you at Southern Fried Gaming Expo, where you were basically showcasing your game Mageling and also the expansion for it, which is the Rise of the Ancient Ones. And I mean, there's obviously a lot of different vendors there, a lot of people trying to, sell their game and tell us about it and things. And yours kind of caught my eye because it seemed very intriguing in the sense of like the artwork was really cool. There was dice involved, but it seemed like once I started talking to you, you were like, but it's not really hard to like learn how to play it. And it's like kind of like you just kind of, build it on and you keep going. Anyway, I'll let you tell me a little bit more about Mageling. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I think you hit the nail on the head as far as what I wanted to create, which was a game that had a very streamlined and kind of simple way of introducing itself, where a small number of rules can open itself up to a larger number of potential possibilities for the game. And sort of like emergent states that can come out of a simple set of rules. And and I'm not a person I don't like a lot of front loading of rules, but I do like a lot of depth and a lot of variability in games I play. So that was a big part of my motivation for creating Mageling.
Yeah, and I remember like one of the specific points you pointed out was that like, the dice have different logos, different icons on them on each side. And the cards also have in like one of the top corners, the same symbol. So when you roll your dice, like, it's really easy to like, okay, well, this one matches this one, so I can play this card or I can do this. And as you said, like build different synergies amongst the cards you have to kind of do this attack. And one of the other cool things I noticed that you mentioned was can be played co-op. Also single player, and then also competitively. So how did that happen? How were you able to create that?
Well, it started as a competitive game, and I wanted it to be a game that, in spite of having randomness, also rewards. I wanted to reward skill. So I wanted it to have a lot of variability, but still be something that you could progress at. And I was lucky enough to play with some competitive card players as playtesters. And so we were able to get the game to a place where really, in most cases, especially in a two-player situation, the better player would tend to win. And you could just see the person was playing well. You could just see the combos happening and, in a high percentage of wins. And then we had our first Kickstarter we didn't fund, and we had to cancel it. But one of the bits of feedback that I got from a player was to, could we have a solo mode? And once I figured out how to have a solo mode, it actually opened the game up completely because it allowed me to just completely go down the rabbit hole from my studio and just without any other playtesters, really just test all these different strategies for the game. And so it was great to have the initial foundation of a competitive game, but once it became solo, it allowed me as just a designer to go so much deeper into the game.
Yeah, I mean, also...
It's really cool because like there's so many games that you love and you're like, I just want to invite people over to play with me, but to be able to play that game by yourself is definitely in another level. That's awesome.
Yeah, it also reminds me of almost like an MMO. Like it's like you level up your skills, like you're by yourself doing your quest. You can always get with your friend and like kind of run some quests too. Yeah. But then there's also that competitiveness where you can actually like team up and actually battle each other and duel it out. Like that's also really neat. Like I just think that's a cool thing.
Yeah, no, I like that kind of idea. And a lot of the games that I like have multiple play modes. But it's interesting because most of the fans of Mageling that I meet have one way of playing or another that they prefer. Like I was dreaming that people would play solo and then build up their skills to compete. But it's it's interesting. I haven't met that many people who, there's a few, but people tend to find whatever mode that they like.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
But about the symbols and the dice, though, matching up with the cards, one of the ideas of the game from the beginning was that you had these dice with these mysterious runes on them. And those runes, they don't actually have any meaning at the very beginning of the game, or very little. But as the game progresses, depending on what cards you gain and what other abilities you gain, that you actually define what the meaning of those runes becomes. So by the end of a game, every symbol on those dice will have a lot of meaning and a lot of effects tied to it. But at the start of the game, they're basically symmetrical.
I know one of the main reasons that you kind of sold me on this game, and it wasn't even the pitch that you gave most people of like how to, what Mageling is. And it was kind of after we had that conversation and we were kind of just sitting there talking a little bit. And you mentioned that you threw in like the Fibonacci sequence. Like there's a part of like math involved in this game too.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what sold me. I was like, okay, this guy is like obviously like really into this game. Like I want to know more about it. Like I got to get it. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I went into it with a lot of ideas about like almost looking for numerology within the game. And I just have this idea that games, one of the things that are beautiful about mathematics are forms of patterns and symmetry. And so I wanted to make a game where there were these patterns embedded within it and just see where that could take a game. Because a lot of games that I play, especially this style of game where you have different factions, you have a lot of just chaotic numbers, right? That don't have any kind of, there's a balance that goes into it. I'm not saying there's no thought that goes into it, because of course there's a lot of thought, but it's a very jagged, chaotic mathematical landscape. And so I wanted to create a very smooth and beautiful mathematical structure behind it. So everything in the game has this sort of like the cost structure of the scrolls have like a bell curve to them, and the number of turns you have in solo mode to move forward is based on the Fibonacci sequence, although it manipulates that Fibonacci sequence depending on what chapter of the campaign you're in. And then there's sort of just a purely linear curve to the escalation of the location's difficulty. And there's symmetry in terms of the scroll types and their cost structures. So there's just a lot of levels of symmetry. And the interesting thing is some of those levels of symmetry, which I did just for my own sort of aesthetic vision for the game, and this sort of idea that there was some beauty in that, have actually helped me with Rise of the Ancient Ones, because, Rise of the Ancient Ones, I should say, we have an expansion for Rise of the Ancient Ones called Apotheosis, Mageling's second expansion, and that actually gives you these decks of cards that are evolutions of certain types of scrolls. And so the fact that we had the same number of each type of scroll allowed me to make these symmetrical decks that each player can gain one of these decks and evolve a certain, like they get a specialization, they can evolve a certain type of scroll. So
that's cool.
So it's interesting how it's begun to pay its dividends in terms of opening up certain possibilities which wouldn't have been, which I didn't foresee, but because it's all done symmetrically, there's these interesting possibilities that have arisen. That's
really cool. Can you tell me a little bit about the artwork on the cards? They look so beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, the artwork was a really important thing for me, because my brother and I, we grew up playing games together, and originally I was going to pitch Mageling to a publisher, and then once my brother started working on the, I talked to my brother. He actually asked if I'd like him to do some of the art for Mageling, and once he started to do that, and we started to build this world together, I just felt like, okay, this is something I want to create. I want to create this world, and I want to create this art style. I did all the coloring for Mageling, and then my brother actually came in and redid mostly the location cards just to improve them, because this was the first time I'd ever colored. Yeah. Thank you so much.
It's really cool.
They look amazing.
The first cards I did were so bad, It's incredible. Like it's just, I mean, so on that level, like in terms of improvement, I'm really proud of myself because, but one of the things I was able to do that that's kind of cool. Like, you know, I originally did it just to save money and to learn, but, you know, to learn more skills. But one of the things that was cool about having the game designer do it was that I made all of the schools of magic have a color scheme that fit that school of magic. So,
cool.
So that you could kind of look without even seeing the symbol and just know what school of magic you were dealing with. And so cool. I really like that, to try to make the game more intuitive based on the colors,
patterns, and and some of that can be emotional too. You know, some of those colors can be, they're striking or they're subdued, and well,
thank you so much. I worked so hard on it. I can't even tell you, because it was awesome. Like, you know, it was not something I was good at. Or, you know, it wasn't like I was born to color. And I've said so many times since then, like, I never ever want to do that again. Like, I'm glad that I learned how to color, and now it was really quite a process. But thank you so much. And every time someone appreciates it, I'm really happy for it, because I mean, it was just it was a labor of love.
It's a process.
Well, even better now that you've done that. And you know the process, you know what works and what doesn't work. Then when, the next game, you're like, oh, I'm going to outsource this process.
Oh yeah.
You can make better judgment on how they do the process and what needs to change on what they're doing, because you've already gone through it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the whole idea of starting a company for me, was to start by learning to do a bit of everything, and then eventually, find people who can do those things better than me.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny you say that, because like, I want to know, like, what inspired you to make this game? Because I know from, like, even from your website, it literally says you went to school for music therapy, and it was like, and I can see how, at least I've done music in the past, and I know that depending on how you go into music, you can look at theories and really start mapping out, even like, progressive metal, where they have like actual, numbers, like Dream Theater, they actually write it out on the board, and like, I could see how that can kind of go into that. But what made you say, I want to make a card game, a deck building game? Like, how did that happen?
Well, I just could feel that the games were made in a way that I just wanted them to be different. I mean, I played games and I just was like, this is all, I loved it. I love board games and I love the games that I played, and I have so much respect for other game designers, but just the way my own mind works, I just had a feeling of like, I want my version of this. Another thing that, besides the sort of trying to create a streamlined design, was that I also wanted to have a very open-ended turn sequence. So like a lot of board games, you have a lot of rigidity in terms of like, you do this now and then you do that then, and there's like this, it's almost like doing in a aerobics class or something. You're supposed to do this move, then that move, then that move. And I really wanted a game that had a lot more freedom, where it wasn't constantly being told what to do, where I had like this agency to just sort of go off and then another thing that I really wanted was, rather than having a single move, this is classic for Euro games, which is, it's an interesting style of design, and I respect it, but I wanted something different. A lot of times with Euro games, you have a single move and everything's resting on that one decision, right? As opposed to Mageling, where you have a lot of micro decisions. So you're building there's a strategic element, there's a tactical element, but it's happening out of more tiny decisions that you make over the course of your turn, rather than one decision, which if you blow it, you've just messed up. And, there's this sense of, it's, I just didn't like that pressure as much. I really preferred to have these sort of more subtle gradients in the decision space.
Yeah. Cool.
That's right.
So what were some of the things that maybe gave you inspiration for making Mageling?
A couple things. One was the games. I get a lot of inspiration from computer card games, computerized card games. And I was playing a lot of Ascension on iOS at the time. I remember that was one thing that really inspired me, because Ascension plays so fast on iOS. It's crazy. Like if I don't know if you played it on iOS, or just deck building games in general, where it's shuffling for you and it's sorting for you and everything's lined up. And then you go and play the actual game in person and it's so much slower.
Right.
Which, and so I wanted to
hate it when that happens.
Yeah, things are slow.
Where's my shuffler? Where's my
exactly. Where's my robotic shuffler? I know maybe that's what I need to get like physical games more, because I love deck building games. I'm obsessed with deck building games, but I prefer them in the digital space actually, because of all this card sorting and the shuffling, and I just have no time for it. And so when I made Mageling, I really wanted to capture the feeling of playing a digital card game in an analog form. And so I wanted to have no shuffling within the game. I wanted to have almost no card sorting between the games, and just have that immediacy of like a very fast setup. And then, and if you know the game, I mean, it can be slow if you don't know it and you're struggling with your decisions. But if you do know the game and you're fast, you can just crank through it and just get to the gameplay and get to the strategy right away. And so that's kind of those. So especially Ascension at the time, and now other games like Slay the Spire, really, and a lot of those kind of roguelike deck building games, like Monster Train and Rogue Book, and just a bunch of those kind of things.
Don't get me started on Monster Train.
I know.
Oh yeah, Monster Train's wonderful. And a lot of that stuff really inspired Rise of the Ancient Ones. So as the deck building games in the computer space or in the digital space were getting better and better, I'm just feeding off of that, because they're just awesome, and trying to not take the mechanisms, but to be inspired by the experience. And then another, as far as another person who inspired me, I think Richard Garfield, the designer of Magic: The Gathering.
Yep.
He had a interview. Well, I love his interviews in general, but he has one, and I can't even find it now, but where he was talking about games and looking at them kind of like an ecosystem, rather than as something that you design and just put into the world as you have designed it in your mind or in your notebook, but rather put in an imperfect prototype into the world and allow it to evolve over many games. And that kind of concept immediately changed the games that I was working on, from being these broken things that I couldn't get to work, to start to generate energy and get momentum, because all of a sudden it's almost like you can't go wrong. Right? Like you create your prototype, and as long as it's improving, you're making it happen. And so it's a very low bar for success. And so I could take like Mageling, when it started, it was very, very broken, deeply broken, right? And you can see why other people
aren't we all
done. Right, yeah. But I had wondered, when I first came up with the core mechanism, like, why hasn't someone done this sooner? And then as I went down the path, I could see where you would get hung up, because there's so many places where this thing just breaks down. But by allowing that broken state to be part of the process, and kind of recontextualizing it into like a positive, it's like, well, yeah, it's a jungle, and the strongest cards survive, and the strongest mechanisms rise to the top. And it's always getting stronger. And so like Mageling's been in that sort of chaotic state for, I don't know how long now, maybe 7 years.
Wow.
Of just, getting better and better. And,
that's really cool.
Yeah. And that's the only way I design now is in this, I keep my games in trays, and I don't even close them. I just have these trays that are just little ecosystems. It's like a petri dish of chaos.
That's awesome. It's like, slide this card in here. Like, So I know we were talking before the show, before we started, and we were saying, we were talking about, my favorite video game, and I was saying how Ocarina of Time is like one of my favorites. And you mentioned how that game to you also seemed to inspire Mageling as well. Do you want to get into that a little bit? I'm kind of interested.
Yeah, sure. No, that's a great question. Ocarina of Time. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those games. Well, for one thing, I'll just say that it's really difficult for a game to hold my interest for very long. And so,
oh, you sound like somebody else I know.
Yeah, well, yeah, all right. I think we talked about that. Yeah, no, I go through games really fast, and occasionally a game hooks me, and I put a lot of time into it. And Ocarina of Time was one of those. And I had experiences with a game that were just so cool. And I remember staying up with my youngest brother, like just playing that game one night, like all night long, him and I. And it was just like such a cool experience. And I loved the whole concept of the shadow world versus the real world, and how everything had this like distorted reflection. It was almost like the dream space, right? Where there were like animal versions of themselves, and you could move between the shadow and in the real world. And so that was like really, at the beginning, there was much more of it in Mageling. Actually, there were a lot of iterations where you were really moving between the shadow realm and then the normal plane that we called the Umbra. And then it eventually morphed into just the ancient ones are these beings from beyond time and space that exist in this umbral realm. And they kind of invade during the first game. And then in the third act, this apotheosis that I've been working on, the Magelings actually enter the Umbra for the first time. So it's
nice.
It's all happening very slowly, but yes, they've just, and it's just kind of like the final act of apotheosis where they can actually go into the Umbra to battle the ancient ones. So that's awesome. So it flirts with those ideas. It doesn't go deeply into them because it just, I really wanted with these games to have sort of narrow focus to some extent and not get too add too many ingredients to the dish. But that was in my mind from the beginning. And then the other thing is like this whole thing of puzzles. And we take a different, I take a different approach to puzzles than Ocarina of Time, but it's so much a part of my consciousness, that sort of unlocking of things, moving the block or whatever it is. And then
you don't have a water temple. Yeah. What you're telling me.
Another thing that I forgot to tell you in Apotheosis as well, that's very Zelda, which is that you can, if you gather all the potions from an area, underneath it you'll find a vault, like a ancient vault from this ancient culture called the Tellurians, with a crack in it. And if you have enough power built up from your power orb, you can crack the vault and get a secret rewards. So that's kind of like,
that's awesome. Cool. That's awesome in a card game.
Yes.
Yeah. So you find that crack under all the potions. Once you've gathered them all, it's like, it's almost like you cleared the dungeon and the last thing you find is that wall that's got a crack in it. And then, if there's no bombs, but if you build up enough power, that's the bomb metaphor.
Yeah. And it's like, but you may not even have that. You may have to just come back.
Yeah. So. Well, you're not always able to, right, to generate that much power in that moment. But yeah, and then you do, and you smash it, and then you flip over the token, and then you get these things called time shards, which are a whole other, that's basically, a time shard is almost like a little sliver of time that you can put onto your scrolls to evolve them, and then you get a higher level version of that card.
Very cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. It's kind of like a little time chunk.
Kind of a sharp right turn here.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned like, hey, we did Kickstarter and it didn't fund the first time. And obviously it looks like, it came back and did fund. And then you're talking about the expansions. So, tell us a little bit about the Kickstarter experience. Like what you learned.
Yeah, I'm very curious, actually.
Yeah. He's shaking his head. Nope.
No, but I think, I've definitely learned from doing. I wouldn't advise everyone do that. I think that, a lot of people who I see successful at Kickstarter are very good at, following these lists, to a T and being precise. And I was just always coming at it from the perspective of being an advocate for, well, at the beginning, just trying to bring this game into existence, see if people wanted it. And people were encouraging me, put it out on Kickstarter, because they thought people would like the game. And I just didn't know if people would like it. And then the minute I found out people wanted it, but it wasn't going to fund, because you have to do pretty well in your first day. But I hadn't done any advertising or anything like that. So I put it out, and people were so hyped on it in the comment section, and they just saw the vision. They wanted the game to exist. And the minute I knew that, then I was like, okay, we're going to do this. And
let's do this.
Yeah, let's do this. I was super pumped after I realized that people wanted it. And then I was
that's
like,
the biggest compliment too.
Well, in that case, let's do it. Let's just go all in. And I really gave it my best shot. I mean, I didn't have, I was working a job that, didn't pay that well. And, I put everything I had into it. Colored it myself, and it was just really tried my best. And then even after it funded, it was quite a process to actually bring that to the market, to actually get it ready for manufacturing and to actually grapple with, okay, this is going to be a product that's got to compete with everything else out there.
Right.
And maybe I need to learn something about graphic design, and maybe I need to learn something about color theory, and maybe I need to, all these kind of things, like make sure it's tuned up, because now people are actually going to be buying it on the market. It's like, kind of
now it's real.
Now it's real. Right. And so it's like, and that pressure cooker is what made Mageling what it is today, because before that, it was, it was more like a lump of coal than a diamond. Yeah. It took that social pressure to just turn Mageling into this, into what it became.
Talk about drinking from the fire hose. Like,
really.
Yeah, so I definitely don't think that's like the way to go about Kickstarter. It was just the way that my journey kind of went, where I was just always kind of I didn't know if people would. I knew I liked the game, and then I was curious to see, are people, how are people going to respond to this? I could tell there was something about this game. I was like, I'm hitting this level with this game that I'm not seeing anywhere else, and are people going to? I just didn't know how and then people liked it. So I was like, okay, that's why Rise of the Ancient Ones exists. Because people, it's not a huge game, but I got enough feedback from fans that I just felt like, all right, well. And then during the Kickstarter, I had teased, if we make a bunch of money, we'll get Apotheosis. And people really wanted that. And so I kind of caved in, and it was like, all right, if you really want Apotheosis, I'm going to do it. So the last 4 months I've just been working nonstop on that, trying to make that everything it can be. And it's just gotten so much better and so much more exciting. And all these vaults and going into the Umbra, that's all stuff that came post-campaign, because the pressure is just so intense. The ideas coming from the backers are great. The love coming from just like the support and the vibe, interacting with people who care about the game and want to see it reach its, the best it can be. Really, really is inspiring. And so, Apotheosis has gone so far beyond what it originally was.
It's like, doing an interview for like a job. It's like, can you work good under high pressure? And it's like,
do you work well under pressure?
I think Joseph checks the box.
The only time I work well. No, I actually, that's the thing, is I really like working on a lot of games at once, and I have a lot of games in progress. And
I'll say, speaking of that, do you have anything else you want to maybe talk about?
Yeah, I was going to say, I did announce something at Dice Tower Con that was a little game that we're going to put out for free next year, called Paranormal Plumbing.
Everybody write that one down.
Yeah, that's if you join our mailing list, we're going to give it out to everyone on our mailing list for free. And I don't know, we'll see if people want a full version of it, but for the meantime, the plan is to have a very easy. The idea is to make a print and play game that it doesn't need to be one sheet. It's going to be a few sheets, but it won't be an overwhelming amount to print. It'll be a pretty easy thing to print up with some cards and some boards.
So if you had to explain like a synopsis of that game, what would that be?
Basically, you are a plumber who specializes in haunted apartment buildings, and so what you're doing in the game is
there.
Yeah, exactly. So we all know what it's like when a toilet or a
oh my gosh, if I had $1.
yeah, exactly, or a sink.
Oh yeah,
a garden hose
did actually have those sinks. That was like, what?
Yeah,
that's not happening.
Yeah, all these things, all these appliances we take for granted. Once it gets
haunted
paranormal activity, once it gets haunted, it makes everything a lot more difficult in your house. So you have these.
Really does.
So you play the role of a paranormal plumber, and basically what you're going to be doing, it's sort of a flip and right game where you're creating pipes to connect apartments, and also while you do, to get money to then get ghost traps to catch the ghosts that are in the building. And so ghost cards can come out and mess up your pipes, but as you proceed, you get more and more ghost technology. So different ways to scan for ghosts, different ways to catch ghosts, different ways once you've caught the ghosts to extract information so that you can, improve what you're doing. So it's a pretty simple, streamlined game, but there's a nice puzzly quality to it that that I have fun, and it's fun because it's like a flip and right. So it's just the setup is like it really is like a tablet game where it's just effortless. It's truly effortless. You can just play it on your couch and whatever, and or you can play it multiplayer over the internet, and so it's just something to give people that really puzzly quality that you might find in a tablet game, but in a physical game that you can play with.
I am looking forward to this.
Thanks.
More than Mageling.
So
no offense.
That's okay. That's okay.
My vote is, Day Drinker, that you donate this picture for the cover art.
What?
So this picture that's my actual sink. From Halloween last year.
Okay, yeah.
Those are not real cockroaches.
Sure. I didn't get close enough to find out.
Or at least they're not moving because they're
yeah.
Would it be okay if that's the back cover?
Yeah, absolutely. No, like you don't even need to. Like this year's sink will look even better. So you're.
That's cool. I like
better.
I know. I have heard from one person, who, because I told at Dice Tower, I was telling a lot of people. One person said that they actually have that problem, or they have had that problem in their house.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's
that's an actual thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's out there. But yeah, I love Ghostbusters and stuff like that.
Love Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, I love Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
It's like the classic.
Yeah.
There's 5 questions we typically ask all of our guests, and you can answer them however you like, as truthful or as honest as you'd like. And I'll start off with the first one. It's so if you had to say,
I'm sorry, were you providing an option there, or as
I know I was gonna say
as honest as you would like?
Yeah, that does leave a lot of room.
Yeah, there you go.
That's not an or.
So, what would you say is your favorite animated character from a game, a movie, a cartoon, or a comic?
Well, this is a difficult one, I got to admit, but I'm going to have to go with Unicron from Transformers the movie. Yes. He's a planet-eating monster, like robot, right? He's a robot the size of a planet that eats planets. So I don't know. I just feel like that's the ultimate. I don't know if
that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
Is there a cooler cartoon character out
there? I mean, not that eats planets. No, I can't say.
Yeah. I mean, right. It's like it can be all those other things, but if it doesn't eat the planets,
I mean,
quite a diet.
There's only so much Superman can do,
It's
Galactus eats planets.
What does
Galactus eats planets to save the rest of the universe?
Yeah,
it's a very noble appetite.
But what makes him less cool is he's not a robot.
Yeah, I mean, but also his voice. The fact that he's got this booming voice. I don't know how people hear him so well in outer space, but they do.
That's true. Because in space, no one can hear you scream.
Well, yeah, as long as he's not screaming, yeah.
Yeah, but it's this booming, thunderous voice that just comes out of this pit in his center, and he's the boss. And he also transformed dead Megatron into Galvatron, which was a boss move because Megatron was pathetic and Galvatron was cool. And so anyone that got rid of that annoying Megatron voice and brought Galvatron into the world, who was also the awesomest toy ever. Yeah. I mean, there's just no comparison.
It really isn't.
Yeah.
All right, what game do you or have you played that you're embarrassed to tell your friends about?
Oh yeah, I want to.
Or you can give us your top 3.
Yeah, well, I was telling. Yeah, this is kind of like I'm sort of an embarrassment of riches when it comes to bad games. That, but I also want to be nice to people. But I do like a lot of games that are questionable, but I think that the one that recently that just had no accolade that I was playing for quite a while, Stranger Things Puzzle Tales. This is a match 3 Stranger
nice.
Things game that leaves theme to the wind, and just kind of wings it. And it's got what are those microtransactions? Yeah. So you will eventually just either go broke or die trying. And but it's actually another game I've been working on is a match 3 adventure game. So it's given me an excuse to play every match 3 game ever made.
Nice.
And, yeah,
I'm currently playing the Magic Puzzle Quest. So
Magic Puzzle. Oh yeah. Oh Puzzle. Yeah, Puzzle Quest is that. I thought about saying Puzzle Quest, but Puzzle Quest is actually a great game. So I'm not gonna say that about Puzzle Quest. I love Puzzle Quest, and Puzzle Quest is actually the inspiration of a game I've been working on for about 4 years, which is like a match 3 adventure game.
Sweet.
So yeah, look out for it. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm obsessed with match 3 games. So they only get worse actually from there. I didn't want to I didn't want to take this conversation too far. I don't want to embarrass myself too much here. But yeah, they range in quality. I'll just put it that way.
Very cool. If you could eat one meal anywhere in the world, where and what would it be?
Well, I think I would go to Thailand where there are durian forests. And I would just eat as much durian as I want.
You love durian?
I love durian. And
that's wild.
I've gotten in trouble because I've traveled. I've done a lot of traveling where I'll just buy a durian any chance I get, and people will come into the kitchen looking for the dead animal. And no, it's just my durian. It's okay. It's my favorite food. Please don't take it.
Oh my God.
I just saw a video of like a husky like freaking out from smelling.
Yeah, I saw the same video.
Yeah.
From what?
There was a husky on like I think TikTok or Twitter or something, but like it smelled the durian and like super dramatic.
But also I have to say, besides being the most delicious, wonderful fruit ever, it also is the coolest looking fruit, and you guys cannot deny it.
That's true. That is very true.
That would absolutely kill a person if it fell on your head.
Yes.
And I mean, it's like impenetrable, and then inside it's like these alien pods that are delicious.
I mean, but how do you get over the smell? Like how does one say, man, I want to eat that?
You just hang out with people who love durian, and the social pressure forces you to try it. And then once you do, you become one of those people.
Okay.
Oh man. All right.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued now. I'm intrigued.
But you can buy it frozen. Like I buy it frozen here in Athens, and it doesn't have the same smell if you buy it frozen. So
okay. But is it equally delicious?
No. It's good, but it's not equally. No way. Fresh durian, nothing beats it. Also, the other thing I'll just say about durian, since you got me on the topic, is that there's a range of how oniony they can be, right? So there's a certain oniony quality to it, but not all of them are equal. It's kind of like goat milk. Not all goat milk is really goaty.
Okay.
Not all durian has that onion quality. So the less onion it has, the more palatable it will be to like normal people who aren't obsessed with durian.
All right.
But you like the really oniony. You love the oniony the better.
Spectrum. I like that they're all different. I have to admit. I like that. That's the cool thing about fruit
equal opportunity employer.
Well, it's just it's just like Mageling. There's variability. I like that. I don't want it to always be the same. I like that there's some of them are more bitter for the connoisseur, and some of them are more like creamy, like a donut. Okay. It's part of the magic of nature.
All right.
Very true.
You've got me intrigued. That's
yeah,
for sure.
me too. Maybe we'll have a durian party.
Yes. No, but be careful though. You
SASS Gaming does durian.
do a video, please. But,
Yes.
but just a heads up to everyone out there who might be thinking about having a durian party. You cannot drink when you eat durian.
Oh,
I don't know why
I'm out. I'm out. I'm already out.
Maybe a breakfast durian party, would that work?
Okay, yeah.
So I'm curious, why can't you drink? Is it like
I actually
something
don't
it mixes?
know. Yeah,
Okay.
that's just what I've been told. But I've been told by I don't have any medical information on the subject, but I've just been told by.
But that's a no-no.
Sounds like they just want you to be completely sober, so you definitely smell it and you have to eat it and you remember it.
They know you're for real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
but I mean, I think you have to try durian. Everyone out there,
Okay.
you have to try durian before you.
I will try anything once, sometimes twice, just to be sure.
Well, there you go.
That's what she said.
Then that's
Seafood.
I am an equal opportunity eater, so
Yeah,
There you go.
gotta try durian.
I do love trying new foods. I will
All
not
right,
turn
SASS
something
does
down.
durian. We'll see how it goes.
Oh my gosh, this would be amazing.
Well, I mean, like Joseph nailed it. You got to do video now.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that
Follow
would be
up.
so fun.
Yeah,
because
it's just seeing people's faces, like like one of our in-person things. That would be
Also,
amazing.
yeah, open the durian on video too. Like I want to,
Yes.
show
Oh, yeah.
them like just. It's also you're talking about what I was talking about earlier about the beauty of mathematics, and how that is what nature is full of are these beautiful mathematical patterns, and the universe is like just filled with these, and that's why I kind of feel like injecting them into games is just a way
Amazing.
to give them meaning that is, for me, deeper. Just as a designer, if I'm going to have to engage with mathematics, may as well engage with beautiful patterns. And so, but the durian is a perfect example of that, of just this gorgeous mathematical pattern that's beautiful, but also, like I said, deadly. Like it looks like a weapon. In fact, you could string it to a rope and it would be a weapon.
So I have to ask last thing on this before we move on. But like,
no, we're not done.
How does it? How is it like? What pointers do you give me to pick like the best durian? Like, how do I know if I'm getting a good one or not?
That is such a good question. Oh my gosh.
Because I think I may know the Buford Highway Farmers Market may actually have durian.
Probably
Like fresh durian. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can find it somewhere.
I mean, if I'm being, generally, I don't know how to tell a good durian from a bad one by the way it looks. The smell maybe a little bit, but mainly I would just talk to people who are farming durian and ask them what are the good, because there's some strains of durian.
I've got like a
really
whole
good.
Bunch of them in my phone. Like,
and the nice
you're gonna need.
I lived in Hawaii.
It's under D for durian.
Yeah, like one of the cool things in Hawaii is that it's not cool for the ecosystem, but the people smuggled fruit from all over the world, like the best strains. And so some of these strains of durian that they grow in Hawaii are just absolutely incredible. Of course, Thailand still has the perfect soil for durian, and they take a long time to fruit. And so it's nice that there's not a volcano there. But, the volcano's not ideal for a fruit. Yeah, they take like 9, 10, they can take 12 years to fruit. So that's why these in Thailand, like these durian forests are absolutely amazing. And that's where I would go. I'd go to one of these, durian forests where you can rent a cottage and just feast. Durian.
Wow, that is really cool.
Yeah. This is definitely something I want to do someday.
Also, I'd like to point out that you heard it here first, folks. Joseph is going to be doing a mathematical-based deck-building durian game just for you.
Yeah, you know what? I thought about it once because there's something called the Durian Trail, which is where durian fruit like across the globe, and there's people who will follow that. And so if I ever get that chance, maybe that would be like a concept.
That would be awesome. That's
the next level to the question. Not just one meal, but like what's your trail you would follow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's
but I mean,
awesome.
I joke about like Mageling being a niche product, but I mean, talk about a niche product.
Yeah.
Durian fans who also like board games. You know,
Oh man.
That Venn diagram is.
I know, because like right now, like Apotheosis is the expansion to Rise of the Ancient Ones, which is so it's like an expansion to a niche game. So like I feel like I'm already at a peak niche level, but like yeah, I think the Durian Trail would top even that.
Yeah,
I agree.
Well, so talking about games again.
Yeah.
What is a game that you like that you think didn't get a fair shake or it was overlooked?
Well, let me think about that for a second. Oh yeah, I was going to say this is actually back to the match 3 thing. Might and Magic Clash of the Heroes. So you guys ever played that?
Boy. Sounds familiar. Yeah.
Pulling out the Might and
so
Magic.
There's a bunch of Might and Magic games that to me, I mean, they're okay, and I don't want to cast too much shade here, but you know, it's pretty standard fare in terms of dungeon crawling. Clash of the Heroes was something totally cool and innovative. I think it came out for Nintendo DS, but it has this match 3 mechanism. But the cool thing is, rather than gems, it's like warriors, you know, like your troops basically. And so you build up an army of troops, and then you drop them into this battlefield where, you know, and then you can, you know, remove troops from the battlefield, which causes a gravity mechanism to make other troops drop in. And when you create a line, they lock into this wall formation, it moves to the front. And then if you create a column, that locks, and they combined, and then they tick down to do an attack on that column. Is the coolest mechanisms. And nobody talks about this game, like, I mean, that I know of. And I just feel like, you know, it got canned on iOS, and they make all these other all these other Might and Magic games, but they never do anything with Clash of the Heroes. And it's just such a good game, and I think they should bring it back, like a new version, a new, I don't know. They should do something with it. It's brilliant. It's just also perfectly refined. You know, you talk about like, you know, simple mechanisms that just lead to deep gameplay. Yeah, it's just a wonderful game.
Cool.
We got Rise of the Ancient Durians coming out.
Yeah,
Clash.
right.
Clash.
Well, I could bring maybe a Durian card into Mageling. Maybe that would be the way to do this more easily.
That's a great idea, actually.
I think you could bring an expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah, full Durian expansion.
Full Durian expansion.
Yeah. Well, you're tempting me with this potion thing. I mean, I can do that right now. Because I love it when potions are shaped like the thing that they do. You know, like we have a lot of weird shaped potions in this. It'd be so fun to have a spiky Durian potion.
There you go.
Yes. Dangerously spiky.
That's awesome.
I mean,
it's about to go to the factory, but there's still time.
There's always time.
So the next question and the last.
How I get into trouble.
Yeah, this is the last question that we have. Is if you could credit one person or one experience from your past, which contributed to where you're at today. Sorry. Who or what is? Would you say that is or is person?
Well, you know, I was tempted to say Richard. I'm tempted to say Richard Garfield, but I've already talked about him, and it's been a big inspiration. But I'll say my younger brother Charles, who did the art for Mageling. Because we grew up playing games together, and one of the things that we did a lot of was like role-playing games, just the two of us playing, you know, because there wasn't a big, you know, role-playing game community in our school. And so we played a lot of games. And so I had a lot of leeway as the older brother to like change the rules and make up stuff. And I ended up making up a lot of content for these, not just Dungeons & Dragons, all kinds of games, especially the Palladium ones and Star Wars role-playing game. And then eventually made my own role-playing game, which, you know, never went anywhere. But all those hours playing with Charles got me into the game design spirit at an early age. And, you know, it was just a lot of fun too.
That's so
awesome.
Sweet.
And I'm glad that like you guys are still working together now. Like it's kind of like your kind of like slight dream kind of thing you guys were just having fun with is now kind of like your passion, like, and you're taking that forward. So.
And it was cool too, because like I don't know if you guys ever heard of the Palladium role-playing game, but it was cool the way they did it because all the games had the same system, so it was like a mashup easily. You could just buy this game, buy that game, put Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Beyond the Supernatural. You've got paranormal, mutant bats, snooping around a warehouse. Yeah, there's so many possibilities, and it really puts you into that creative space where you're not just, playing out some kind of template. You're imagining and solving problems to make the game interesting.
That's awesome.
Well, obviously, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, Joseph. We really appreciate having you guys on, or having you on. But before we go, I guess if we listen to for our viewers out there and listeners out there, how do we find your games? Like, how do we find Mageling? How do we find the Kickstarter? Like, how do we find you?
Yeah, well, you can go to familiargames.net, and we've actually just opened the Pledge Manager, which will be open throughout the month of September. So if people want to late pledge, pre-order Rise of the Ancient Ones, you can still do it. And that link will be available from our website, familiargames.net. And yeah, you can check us out on Instagram or Twitter, Familiar Games. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, you can check out our games. There's some content on YouTube and playthrough, stuff like that. So yeah.
Sweet. Well, hey, again, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us today. And can't wait to have you back on.
It's been awesome.
Thanks so much.
Can't wait to have you back on for the paranormal plumbing once that gets released, because I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and I'm going to put the notifications on so I'm the first to know when your durian video drops.
Yeah, there you go.
I don't want to miss it.
Oh, man.
It'll be there at
I
the
do.
launch. You're
That's awesome.
You're either going to love it or you're going to hate it.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Way, good content.
Yeah, really.
I have a feeling I'm actually gonna like it. I know. I love.
You're the one that gave me like those shrimp chips or whatever. It's
exactly.
Like, so
yes. The fact that you don't like the shrimp chips is weird to me. That's
super
fucking weird.
It's an otherworldly beauty. Durian,
okay.
It's like tasting some kind of alien fruit. That's
okay.
If you're down for it, it's the most beautiful taste in the world. If your earth sensibilities reject it, you're gonna be in trouble.
Oh man, well that's awesome. Well, hey, thanks again. Until next time, guys. You take care, and we'll see you on the next video. See ya.
Take care.